Father, we thank you so much for this beautiful day. We just thank you for the opportunity that we get to come together, to worship you together, God, to just learn more about you, God, and just turn our hearts towards you. Just pray as we sing these songs, God, that our hearts are drawn closer to you, God, and it impacts our life, which in turn impacts our community, God. We just thank you so much for your grace and for your love. And in your name we pray. Amen. I give you glory for all you've brought me through. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. I'm moving forward to follow after you. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Sing, now I'm ready. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. In every season, your grace has been enough. And I'm believing the best is yet to come. The cross before me, my hope on things above. And in you, Jesus, the best is yet to come. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. And I know a breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and he won't stop now. I know a breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God, he made me a promise and he won't stop now. I know a breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God, he made me a promise and he won't stop now. I know a breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and he won't stop now. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. When we follow Jesus and believe in him, he does more than just change our life. He takes us from death to alive. When we are dead in our sin and we believe in Jesus, he changes our lives and he gives us the life of his grace and his love. And I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along, put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness in my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Sing that again. Lord, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing that's better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Lord, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you.
You guys can go ahead and have a seat. Hopefully you guys are having a good morning, got some restful sleep last night. But before we get anything started, I want to make sure that everyone is here connected. So in your envelopes, there's a connect card if you don't mind pulling those out. There, you can go ahead and fill those out. And if you're a first time, I want to make sure that you guys hold on to those. But that way we can go ahead and connect with you and just make sure that, you're here connected as a church. If it's your first time, keep it with you as you exit. You can go ahead and give it to our welcome center, and we have a gift prepared for you and everything. But other than that, we would love to celebrate your prayers, your celebrations, your victories, and we would just love to be along that ride with you. Next, we have some small groups that are coming up for our next season, and we really encourage that you guys join these. Life changes, and we grow together in our relationships and in communities. So we have a couple of trailers for you to see, if you don't mind playing those.
Hi, I'm Louis Giglio, and I want to welcome you to our journey through the book of Acts.
Come on now, people. Come on now, people. Come on now, people. Gonna praise the Lord.
We are going to see how God's story unfolds and moves out on planet Earth and how it's still moving even today. You'll be my witnesses. Think about that. What does it mean? It means that we're going to be the bullhorn, if you will, to the world that proclaims the story that Jesus is alive. At the heart of our gospel is the cross, but the power source is the empty tomb. In fact, you're going to see an incredible promise. There is a very clear purpose, and you're going to see that there is all sufficient power for every single believer. God is giving us a purpose for our lives and the power to carry out that purpose until the end of time. We've got our marching orders from someone who has demonstrated ultimate power, and that is power over sin, death, hell, and the grave. The book of Acts is still unfolding, the church is still exploding, and the world still needs to hear about Jesus.
You see in the bulletin, there's a bunch of Connect cards, or there's a bunch of bulletins for it. There's this Sunday one that is going to be for the young adults, but the one that you just saw is for the Maritza Miguel group. That is this Sunday, or this Monday, from 7 to 9. And we also have more trailers for you as well. This is for our Tuesday with Colleen Whitelaw, and so we're going to go ahead and see that right now as well.
Every day we ask so many questions. What should I wear? What's the weather going to be like? How am I going to fit everything in? But then there are those bigger questions, like why am I here? Where am I heading? Is there more to life than this?
I had arrived at an answer to the most important issue that we humans ever deal with. Is there a God? And I had arrived there without ever really looking at the evidence. And I was supposed to be a scientist.
At 28, I had gotten many of the things that I thought I wanted. My girlfriend was on the cover of magazines, I had a Beamer, and I was so unhappy. It was a realization maybe that I would never find happiness where I was looking for it.
I think for so many years, I always just strived to be strong in myself. All I needed was me and my buddies and, we'd be like invincible. But the truth is, none of us are.
I found purpose, I found meaning, I found hope. God took something so broken and made it a beautiful art piece.
Alpha is a place where you can be yourself. You can say what you think and challenge everything. No question is too complex or too simple. And what your point of view is as important as anyone else's.
We are going on a journey together, an adventure to explore the questions of life, faith, and meaning.
pastor and his wife are going to be leading on Thursdays at our office sites. But we would love for you to join one of those ones. It would be so much fun. That way we can go ahead and connect with you guys, grow together as a church family and just with friends as well. That being said, I have one more announcement for the parents. There's a big conference coming up for the youth. It's called CIY, Christ in Youth. I got some dates here for you. So the middle school one is mixed. It's 27th to the 30th. And then we have the high school one, which is the 20th to the 24th. It is quite a bit of money. For every student, it's going to be $300 to $75. So if you have multiple kids, it adds up. So we recommend fundraising and all of that. There's more information in emails. And if you love, it's going to be February 6th. Is going to be our first deposits for those if your kids would love to join. That way we can go ahead and reserve those spots. Also next week, if you guys don't know already, is going to be our birthday celebration. We are turning 2 as a church, which is amazing. We would love you guys to bring your friends, family. We're going to have some tacos, cakes, some photos set up somehow in this courtyard with all this. But we would love for you guys to be there. Also, and not least, is going to be offering. Your generosity is what fuels everything we do here at the church. Our student ministries, what we're able to do here every Sunday, and our community projects that we do all over. So we would love and challenge you guys to give generously, but there's 3 easy ways to give. So in your envelopes, there's going to be a giving envelope as well. You can go ahead and put your offering in there and give it on the way out. Other than that, you can also mail our P.O. boxes, which will be there as well. And online, there's going to be on our website a way to give as well. So with that being said, hope you guys have an amazing morning and just have fun.
Thank you. Man, love having him up here as a service host and stuff. But I want to say that, next weekend, we are really excited. We were reflecting this morning and kind of just talking about the last 2 years and how I think it was Tim, our worship director. Tim was like, hey, this feels like we're back to our roots right now because so much of what we did for the first couple of years, our first few months as a church and our first couple of years of existence has been outside at Cesar Solis Park in so many ways. Back from when Marcus was cooking us amazing barbecue in the early days, all the way up to all the services that we had. And I think we even reminisced this morning about the time that the wind blew away this tent while the band was playing. This big tent, it just went end over end behind us. It was hilarious. But here we are, and just about to celebrate our 2nd birthday next weekend. So you should have got this on the way in. This is just a postcard. You can put that on your fridge just as a reminder to pray this week for next week and to pray for this next year, our 3rd year as a church. But then also, too, you got a couple of these. And, man, we just want to encourage you to invite anybody that you know that may find some hope and may find some encouragement in coming out for our 2nd birthday. I'm so pumped about next week in so many ways because I'm going to be talking about what God's done over the past couple years. And then I'm going to be talking about our hopes and dreams for you in 2022 and what we hope for you to happen. And part of that is going to be, and I'm really nervous, I got some advice this week, and we're going to open up our general budget next week. As the end of the message and just be real transparent and open as much as possible and just share with you, like, this is our hopes and dreams for you, and here's how the dollars that we receive, we spend those to see your hopes and dreams hopefully potentially come true in that. So I'm excited about next week. And then we're trying to figure out how to do this in the courtyard and have tacos in a photo booth and the whole thing, and we're still figuring that out. This week we were like, how do we get more shade? So that's what we got to for this week. But that's coming up next week. Hey, and even in being outside, I have my backup because back in the park, my iPad shut off a few times because of the sun. So I got my backup Trapper Keeper here today. Is this a Trapper Keeper? Like ready for the notes if my iPad goes down? That said, I'm just going to stop and pray for the message, and we're going to get going. Jesus, I pray that over the next few minutes, you let these words, God, you let these words be impactful. God, that they're not just my words from my brain and my heart, but Lord, that you speak to us through your word, through your words, Jesus, written and spoken 2,000 years ago. And so I pray you use this, God, to build up our lives, to build up our futures, to build up our families, and to build up our character, Lord. And so it's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. So it was, I think I've shared the story at the beginning of this series, but I just want to, highlight on it again. But there was a season where I was starting to, about 8 months ago, just feel kind of burnt out. Like, how many times can you adapt and go a different direction and stuff. And so I needed more focus in my life, so I ended up purchasing the Full Focus Planner, which I've talked about by Michael Hyatt a bunch of times. And it really has helped me in a lot of ways to not just get things done, which I will always be like somebody who's driven and just work and get things done, but to get the right things done, okay? And that's what I've been trying to focus on over the last few months, is to just get the right things done in life, and in a productive manner. In the passage that I want to look at today, we're just going to jump right in. The passage I want to look at today, it's kind of one of those passages that I don't think we like to talk about in the church that much, because it's kind of more of a business passage. It seems like a transactional passage than, like the ooey gooey feel good stuff that we like in church so oftentimes. Because this is literally a passage where Jesus is going to confront each and every single one of us, and he's going to ask us, how productive is your life? How productive is it? And we don't like to think about how productive our lives are very often, do we? We just like to think about, different things. And so Jesus tells this parable that we're going to be at. And just to kind of catch you up, a parable is this. A parable is a story about the way that the kingdom of God works. So the kingdom of God is anywhere where God has his reign and rule. It's everywhere. And this story that we're going to look at, this parable that we're going to look at, is a story about the way that the kingdom of God works. So we're just going to be in Matthew chapter 25 this morning. We're going to pick up in verse 14, and we are just going to go for it. It's the Bible study. Let's do this. It says this again, the kingdom of heaven, okay? So anywhere that God has his reign and rule, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. And I just want to stop you right there, okay? That word long trip that we have on our thing, other translations translate that as journey, okay? And so what he's saying is that the kingdom of heaven can be like a man that's going on a long journey. And I think that like right away we, just so we can start to understand the kingdom of heaven a little bit, that we need to understand that following Jesus, giving our lives to Jesus is not just like, hey, I said a prayer, or hey, I'm a nice person, or hey, I open my Bible, or hey, I do this and I come to church on Sunday, or anything. Like following Jesus is intended to be a journey. It's intended to be a journey with ups and downs, and like a real battle. Like I think about this so often, and it's like I think we just think that, so like it's just a bunch of rules, and I need to follow this, and I need to follow this. And like literally the kingdom of heaven is like a journey with like where we, you think, I may not make it. Like I may not make it all the way through this journey because there is an evil force in this world that is trying to take me out. And I think sometimes we think, like the big sins or the big evils, and like I'm going to cheat on my spouse, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, like whatever. But I think that the enemy that we are engaging on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, like minute by minute basis, is somebody who's just trying to get you to trade whatever you've got, the best, Jesus, for like something that's just, whatever. Like, hey, my kids need to do this, or I need to do this, or I need to pay attention to this, or I need to go here, do that. And like we're in a battle where the enemy is trying to take you out from the main purpose for with which you have existence on this life, to worship Jesus, to be with Jesus, and to make your life productive for Jesus. And so I think that so many people like don't care about church, so many kids walk away from the faith. So many people go to college and abandon because they don't know that they're on a journey. They just think that they go to church, and they just think they're trying to be good. And when we understand that this is a journey, that there's an evil force within us in life, we can understand the way with which the kingdom of heaven works, and we can understand that we're part of a greater story. So this passage says that the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip, and he called together his servants, and he entrusted his money to them while he was gone. Okay, so we need to understand now, like this man going on the journey this is Jesus talking. This man going on the journey is like God. And it's like God entrusting to his servants a bunch of money. And then he says this. He says he gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. And you may have heard this passage before, and you may have heard the bags of silver have been called a talent in other translations of the Bible. And literally a talent in that day and age would have been approximately 20 years worth of wages. So it's like, okay, so this guy, he gets 500 years worth of wages. This guy, he gets, 2, so he gets 40 years worth of wages. And this guy gets, 20 years worth of wages. And I kind of geeked out on this a little bit, and I did some math, and I don't know what minimum wage is at nowadays, but let's just play like minimum wage is $15 for a second. I haven't kept up with this. So if you made minimum wage, if you barely took any time off, you would make approximately $30,000 a year, okay? So if you made $30,000 a year for 20 years, you would make $600,000. And so for our scenario, 5 talents would equal $3 million. 2 talents would be $1.2 million, and 1 talent would be $600,000. And the point is this, is that the master, okay, he entrusts this to his servants based on their ability, okay? So he doles out this cash, he doles out this money based on their ability. Now that ability could be translated as their power, their potential, their strength, in so many ways. And so I think about this in my own life, and I think about how I ration out, the drinks at the dinner table to my daughters based on their ability, right? It's like, Ruthie can kind of handle the full cup, and even with one hand now. Jenny, a little less milk in there for her, Jenny, because she can't handle the full, she's a dropper, okay? Can I say that? Kelsey says I'm mean to her all the time, because ever since she's been a little kid, she just drops things, just drops them. And then Charlotte, it's like she gets that much milk in there because it is going to be all over our walls, all over our floor, everywhere if she's got a full cup of milk. So we know, Charlotte, we'll refill that a few times for you, but you get this much because of your ability. And I think we need to come to the passage understanding that the master doles out these talents, these bags of silver, this money, in accordance to the ability of the servants that he's entrusting his, okay, remember it's his, not theirs, his money, his resources to. And then it says this, the servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money, and he earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more, but the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. I mean, I'd like to be the guy with 5, making 5 more, right? And it says this, verse 19, after a long time, their master returned from his trip, and he called them to give an account of how they had used his money. And I need you to understand that after a long time probably means a lifetime for the purposes of this story. Because Jesus, remember, he's telling a parable. He's telling a story about the way that the kingdom of heaven works at the time. And so this is probably Jesus saying after a lifetime, the master comes back. And so after a long time, he returns. And I think this is just a reminder that to us that what was given to them isn't theirs. And that's the Christian narrative that we talk about, we preach about all the time. Your life is not your own. Your resources are not your own. Your money is not your own. Your time, all this stuff. In verse 20, it says, the servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more, and he said, Master, you've given me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned 5 more. And the master was full of praise. He said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I'm going to give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Okay, 2 things. If you have a Bible, I would highly recommend you underline these 2 particular parts in all of this. It says, you've been faithful in handling this small amount. We're going to go back to that in a minute. You've been faithful in handling this small amount. And then the other thing is, let's celebrate together, okay? Let's celebrate together. There's something about their investment. There's something about the master's delight in their investment that brought joy. Other translations of the Bible say, enter into the joy of the master. I mean, this one says, let's celebrate together. I think, we're going to get there in a minute. We're going to go a little bit further on that in a minute, that idea. But then verse 22 says, the servant who'd received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you've given me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned 2 more. And the master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I'll give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came, and he said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money back. And see, this is the picture Jesus is starting to give. I think you understand where this is starting to go, but this is the picture that Jesus is giving of someone who has absolutely wasted their existence on planet Earth. This is the narrative. Jesus is like, hey, you want to know what throwing your life away looks like? Look to the guy who just went and dug a hole and put his talent, put his money, put his resources in that hole. That's what wasting your life looks like. And I think that what we can kind of see is his perception of the master, the way that he perceived the master, led to that wasted life too. And I think that's why, A.W. Tozer said, the most important thing about you is what you think about when you think about God, because that will fuel your productivity in your life. It will. What you think about when you think about God will be your marching orders. And he was afraid it was going to be harsh if he lost the money, so he just didn't do anything. And he wasted his life. He wasted his existence. He wasted what was given to him. And the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant, gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. And then he ordered, take the money from this servant, give it to the one with 10 bags, to those, okay, hear me on this, okay, verse 29. This is where we're going this morning. This is it. To those who use well what they are given. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given and they'll have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant out into the utter darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. See, this story, in a lot of ways, is meant for every single person to evaluate their productivity in the kingdom of heaven. That's why Jesus told it. It's an evaluation standard. It's meant for us to look at, read, and then take stock and inventory of our own life and to say, what are we doing with what has been given to us? And I think we can look at it, about way more than money, right, at this. Because I think that Jesus' intention and point was a lot more encompassing than just money. I think it comes down to money. I think it comes down to time. It comes down to actual talent, not the talent as the sum of money, but actual ability. So time, talent, treasure comes down to money a little bit. And then I would add a fourth category. And I was reading from the commentaries. It comes down to authority. It really does come down to authority in a lot of ways as well. And I think about this real quick. And the first thing, if you're following notes on your note sheet, is your best year yet, because we're in best year yet, y'all. Your best year yet is downstream of using your God-given life well. It just is. That's why we titled this message, Use It Well, today. Because I think that in a lot of, we've covered a lot coming into this series. The first week I got up here and I talked about how your best year yet it's going to happen when you have your best year spiritually. Ricky got up here the second week, did an amazing job, and talked about how your best year yet is going to be based on you flipping the algorithm in your mind in a lot of ways and transforming your thoughts to godly thoughts. And this year, I just want to say your best year yet, it's downstream of using your life well. It just is. And I have this quote real quick that I want to read. I think we got it on the screen. It's Bear Grylls. We had Bear Grylls in the Alpha video a second ago. I love me some Bear Grylls. But he says this, I, for one, I don't know if you can read that with the sun, but I'll read it to you. I, for one, do not want to reach the end of my life in a perfectly preserved body. I want to come flying in sideways, covered in scars, beaten up and screaming, Yahoo, what a ride. I love that. I love that quote. And I resonate very deeply with that quote, and I know all of you guys don't necessarily resonate with that quote, so to say. I kind of don't want that many scars, but, I do want to say, Yahoo, what a ride. And I think that we get that, right? I think that deep down you resonate with the core of that because you want to do some big things in your life. Each and every single one of us, we want to do some big things. I was thinking about it the other day. Kelsey and I think we've traveled to 17 countries, okay, at this stage. I want to double that at least before I go kicking in sideways to my grave. At least 34, I was thinking about I unashamedly want this church to thrive. I do. I want to see people come to, over the next year and years and decade, I want to see more and more people come to faith in Jesus, get baptized, and grow into a mature relationship with Jesus with their lives. I want to see that happen. I want to see those big things happen. I want to see my kids grow up to be productive citizens. I want to see them follow Jesus. I want to see them love each other. I want to see them make a difference and an impact in the world. I can see these big things happening, but here's the flip side, right? You know that within each of those things come a lot of small things. Don't there, right? Like, I can go, like, going to 17 more countries with 4 more kids in tow. Are you kidding me? There's so many little details that are not going to get worked out in the immediate future when it comes to that, because I won't take my almost 2-year-old on a plane again for another few years. Like, the last time he flew back, like about a year ago, this time it's like, okay, that's your last time flying. So you're like 5 or 6 or whatever. Like, you're just going to be in California and the grandparents can come visit you, because I'm not getting back on a plane with you. It's just not going to happen. I think about this church, and I want to see God do all these amazing things and everything. But I just know that this next week, mark my words, you can ask me next week, this next week in our mailbox at home is going to be some kind of paperwork that takes 2 to 3 hours to fill out, of small details of something that the California government wants to keep a record of, whatever. And that's just one of a million mundane, like, stupid tasks that you wouldn't even think about. Somebody sitting here, like, I thought I was just going to get to preach on Sunday. No, in so many ways. I didn't know I was going to have paperwork all week and all these different things and stuff like that. But you get, like, to have a healthy, growing, thriving church takes a lot of little detailed work throughout the days and the hours. And I mean, I could get going on the kids forever, but it's like, man, I want them to be productive citizens, but I think that just starts with getting on the floor and playing with them tonight, which is one of my annual goals this year, is to get on the floor and play with my kids 3 to 4 times a week. You get what I mean? And we have these big dreams, and I think that, we read the Bear Grylls quote, and we're like, man, I want to see these huge things happen in life, forgetting that life in a lot of ways is about the smaller things. See, your best year, it's downstream of using your God-given life well. But I would say number 2 is this. Faithfulness in the smaller things leads toward fruitfulness in bigger things. Faithfulness in the smaller things leads towards fruitfulness in the bigger things. You saw that with the first 2 guys that brought their money to the master. And he says, you have been faithful with some of these smaller things, and now I'm going to give you so much more as a result of that. And so I was kind of thinking about this, and going back to my planner, one of the reasons I love my planner so much. Are we going to lose the pipe and drape? I don't. One of the things I love about my planner so much is, one of the things that is talked about is we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, right? And then we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. Like, we overestimate what we can accomplish in 2022, but underestimate what we can accomplish in the 2020s of this time. And one of the things I love about my planner is that I've broken up my annual goals this year. Like, I have 13 annual goals that I'm shooting for this year, and I've broken them up into 4 to focus on this quarter of the year. And then each week I review the 4 that I'm going to go over, and I break down into a weekly. These are 3 things that have to happen for my quarterly goals to be accomplished. And then each day I'm like, okay, for the weekly things, here's something I need to focus on today. And see, because the reality is our best year yet is lived in seconds. And I was thinking about it, and I Googled it this week, and your best year yet has 31,536,000 seconds in it. Isn't that crazy? You're going to live 31 million seconds this year. I mean, you've already used, it's the 16th, so you've already used up a lot of them. But you're going to have a lot of seconds this year. And the reality is the big things that you hope to accomplish, the big things that you want to see come true, they don't happen in decades. They happen in seconds. Like, what you do this afternoon matters where you're going to go in 2025. It just does. And faithfulness in the smaller things leads towards fruitfulness in the bigger things in life. And I just have 4 questions as we kind of look at this thing, because there's 4 aspects, I think, of your life to be faithful in when it comes to the kingdom of heaven. And I've already mentioned them, but one of them is time. And the question is this: how are you going to contribute your time to God's kingdom? How are you going to contribute your time? Because God has given you an allotted amount of seconds in your life. And I think that the evaluation that we can have right now is that someday, this story is hinting at someday we're going to stand before God, and he's going to ask us, how did you use what I gave you? And part of what I gave you is some seconds on this planet. And so I would go further. Like, God gave you kids to invest into. God gave you people in your neighborhood that you rub shoulders with. God gave you coworkers. God gave you people in your life to use your time well with for God's kingdom and for God's purposes. So one is how do you contribute your time? The second one is this: how will you contribute your talent? How will you contribute your unique wiring to God's kingdom? How are you going to contribute the way that God's made you to his kingdom? And I think about this so often. Like, God made all of us different, you know? And I don't know your personality or whether you do Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or whatever, you know, kind of personality test, but each and every single one of us has a very specific wiring, and God's going to, into account, like, ask you how you used your wiring for his purposes, how you used what you're good at for his purposes. And the third one is this: your treasure. And the question is, how are you going to contribute resources to God's kingdom? See, God's given you a certain amount of money. He's given you a certain amount of things. You know, he's given you a bank account and a lot of things. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to be like, man, how did you use what I gave you? How did you use, you know, what I entrusted to you? How did you use that for my purposes? How did you use that for my kingdom? What'd you do? Did you just treat it like it was all yours? Or did you see it from the perspective that I see it, as in something that I gave to you, entrusted to you, went on a journey, and I'm going to come back and expect a recollection of how you used it? And then I think the fourth one is this: is that of authority. And the question is, how did you contribute? How will you contribute your power to God's kingdom? Because the reality is, all of us have a different amount of authority in our lives, right? You have authority over kids, you have authority over maybe employees, you have authority over people that in your department or whatever that you work with, and you have authority over different people in your life. And I think God's going to ask you, how did you use that authority that I gave you, that I lent to you for a period of time? Because all authority comes back to me in the end. And so it's this, is according to God, when we're faithful here, and when we're faithful in the smaller things, we're going to be fruitful. But then also, not only are we going to be fruitful, he's going to entrust us with more and make bigger things happen in our lives now. And then the third thing I want to share with you, if you're following along with the little arrows, is this, and this is the good one. I think whenever we use it well, when we use this life well, God brings the party to our lives. Now, let me explain this for a second. When we use it well, God brings the party to our lives. I've shared this maybe before, but I'm just going to share it again. So back in, I don't know the year, but it was over a decade ago now, but when we first moved to New Zealand, one of Kelsey's best friends from high school, she married an Australian guy. And so he had this perfect job where he was able to work at this company in Chicago and Adelaide, South Australia. And so they got married and moved to they moved to Adelaide, South Australia, whenever they got married. And so for their wedding and everything, as they moved over, they were going to have this, small, like whatever wedding, but they invited Kelsey and I, Kelsey to be the maid of honor, since the bride's family was pretty small, and they invited me to come over and do the wedding, which was my first wedding that I ever performed, And they're like, hey, we want you guys to come over to the Barossa Valley. We're going to have this wedding in this like little boutique winery that's, going to overlook this idyllic Mediterranean-like setting with olive trees everywhere, and it looked like you're in Italy in so many ways. And so we're just like, this is insane. This is one of the coolest environments. And so finally got the wedding done at like 2 p.m. that afternoon. So it's 3, and they start to do some pictures after the wedding. And that was whenever they started carrying around the $75 bottle wines. And they're like, oh, would you like a little wine in your glass, sir? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then they start bringing out I'd never heard this term before, but the amuse-bouches. You know what I mean? And so they started bringing it around, like literally from 3 p.m. to midnight that night. They were walking around with wine bottles that were $75 a bottle, and they were walking around little like amazing food, like caviar and like little smoked tuna things, and like just amazing stuff. And I mean, I'm talking like 10 p.m. and it was like he married into an Italian-Australian family, and 10 p.m. we're like literally we got our silverware rags, and we're following the dad of the groom, and he's like leading us in an Italian song, and we're like, and like running around swinging towels and the whole thing. And it was a magical, amazing party, to the point where a day later like Kelsey and I are just reflecting on how fun that night was, all the food, everything. And Kelsey's like, hey, would you rather do that wedding again or ours? And I'm like, crap, that's a bad question. I was like, honey, I think I'd rather do that again. That was amazing. She's like, me too. And I think that here's the deal. What you see from this passage is the master says, because you've been productive, because you've used your God-given life well, let's party. Let's celebrate. Enter into my joy is what it says. And I think there's something about this passage that says when you use your God-given life well, not only will you get to experience joy for eternity with Jesus in heaven, but you will enter into the joy of the kingdom of heaven right here, right now. You were meant to use your God-given life well. You were meant to be productive. You were meant to get your time, talent, treasure, and authority in sync with what God's doing in this world. You were. And when you do, I think you'll experience the joy of the master and your best year yet. I think you will. I think I will. I think that's what Jesus is trying to say through that passage. So, man, let's use our lives well and let's party with God, y'all. So we're going to, all this is possible because of communion, and you should have received that. All this is possible because of Jesus, and you should have received communion when you came in this morning. And basically every single week, Jesus, this whole story was a foreshadow of the ultimate joy that we were going to get to have because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And so each week at Church 180, what we do is we take a little cracker, we take a little juice, and the cracker represents the sacrifice that Jesus made with his body so that we could be forgiven. And the juice represents the sacrifice of the blood of Jesus that was poured out to cover over all of our wrongs, to cover over all of our sins, to cover all of the times in our life that we've been less than productive and actually counterproductive with our lives. And so I'm gonna pray for that communion, and during this next and last song, you are welcome to take that whenever throughout. So Jesus, thank you so much. God, I pray that you will help us, God, with our lives to be more productive. God, to be more productive for the things that matter, that you'd help us to get in sync our time, talent, treasure, and authority, Lord, for your sake. God, thank you so much that you paid the ultimate sacrifice for our sins so we could have this hope that we talk about that we can turn towards. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
I've tried so hard to see it. Took me so long to believe it. You choose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. Give what we don't deserve, and you take the broken things and raise them to glory. Yeah. You are my champion, giant for when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won, I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. And when I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles stop breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated. By the power of your name, I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all.
A good morning. Hope you have a great afternoon, and man, we hope you have a great week, and we see you right back here next week for our second birthday. It's going to be fun in the courtyard. And hey, that said, don't forget to sign up for a group. There's some great options. The one video that we didn't catch today, and I swear, it is going to be amazing, is on Tuesday night. Is going to be Financial Peace University, and it's going to be talking about getting out of debt and building wealth in a godly way. And so, yeah, we got some great options. So sign up for a group. Man,